All right, today we're in the garage. I'm gonna start working on this axle, which is a dually Dana 70 HD out of an 80s Ford. So I've got a bunch of parts put together to go in this, and I was working on the brakes. I took the whole assembly off to go in and match up parts. Uh, and the thing I noticed was the cable comes, parking brake cable comes up through here, and it hooks to an arm that swings up and over onto this pivot, and it's not there on that that brake. So what I'm going to do is, I believe I have an old project that I decided to stop doing. I've got an axle here. It is a Sterling, I believe it's a Sterling 10 1/4 axle, single rear wheel. And it appears that the backing plate on these single rear wheel and dually Dana 70s are the same. And these axles backing plates look like they're in pretty good shape, where the backing plates I took off them, or this other axle, is pretty rusted, pretty thin in some spots, about clear through. So I'm going to check in to see if I can use these backing plates. Should be all the same parts by the looks of it, and put this axle together with that stuff. I've got a hub apart, so what I'll do is I'll drive the inner races into this hub and put the brake drum on this hub. And what I'll do is I'll put one of those backing plates onto this axle, and then slide that hub on with the drum on it without the wheel seal in it onto the spindle of the axle, and make sure that there's no funky spacing going on between the two of them, and make sure that it will indeed work before I go too much further. So I guess let's get to it. All right, this is the axle that I was going to use for a different project. It was a Sterling, the easiest. My creeper just broke. All right, the easiest way to tell is how the hub is set up on the very end. So you see the tapered ends to it. And then this is the end of the axle shaft. See how it's flat with this little design in the middle? Where your Dana axles are more like that. They've got a bump here. And their bolts are different too. So your Sterling axles have bolts like that. Where your Dana axles are more of a regular flat head bolt. Just little things that don't really make a difference, but it's easy to tell that way. The other way is the case. So this case is taller than a Sterling, and the cover's set up a little different. And then the front, a Sterling axle will always have an ABS sensor right here. But this end of the spindle, the threads are the same. The bearing is the same size here as far as the inside diameter of the bearing. The inside bearing is, the Dana bearing is considerably smaller, and the seal size is considerably smaller, but the backing plate is the same. So this is your parking brake cable right there. It comes to here. This whole arm is what's missing on this one. So I either could reuse this backing plate, which is in pretty bad shape, and have to track down a whole new arm and everything, or I could just swap this over and use this one, as long as everything fits right. So I've got the Dana 70 hub with a new drum on it, and I put the studs in. Now, see if I can get this on camera. I'm not gonna be able to. Well, those studs aren't pressed in enough to lock the drum to the hub. It's just friction, so I just have to really beat on those this ends of the studs to really force them down in there. And I could also put a nut on these threads to pull it and then beat on it too, and that'll help pull it down in place. But it's not loose. Actually, you can hear it there. Just a little bit of play in it, but it'll be good enough for what I need to do. I'm going to put the bearings in. I'm actually going to use the Sterling nut. So it takes a special socket. This one is the Dana 70 nut, and it's like a nylock nut. And then a little piece goes into this groove that gets pushed into the nylock. Well, this also takes kind of a special socket. So I ordered new nuts and everything because I wasn't sure how else to do it. And then as I was taking it apart, I'm like, well, let's check it. Well, the Sterling nut fits right on that, and it'll fit in the hub. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the bearings in with no seal, and then put that hub on to this end with this backing plate in place, and put that nut on it, and hopefully everything fits. And what I can do is rebuild this backing plate with all my new parts and use that hub to put this wheel end together, and then do the same thing with that axle and this wheel end. That way I have nicer, newer backing plates. They're all painted. They all still have the paint on them and everything. So I figured that would be a good candidate for this. And then I got to put the ring and pinion in it, which I've got to get a new ring and pinion set and a new carrier, but that'll be later. I think for now I'm just going to try to get it all cleaned up, get the wheel ends on it, and then get it out of the garage. I can do the ring and pinion setup later, because all I got to do is put that cover on this and it'll seal that rear end up. So let's get back to work. And there it is. That's the Sterling 10 1/4 nut in the Dana 70 hub on the Dana 70 spindle. There it is, all put together. Backing plates there. And it spins. So that means I'll be able to pull the backing plate off of this one and put it on that side of the axle, and put all my parts onto those good backing plates that are on the axle. Will be on the axle, and I can put the wheel ends together on this axle. So that's cool. But it's getting late tonight, so I'm gonna call it a night. I'll have to come back out and pull this hub back off and redo this backing plate and everything, but that'll be later. So thanks for sticking around. Bye. All right, so I got that side done off camera because I needed to really get through it, because that's when my mom's car broke down. So I didn't film any. I'm not even really sure where I stopped filming, but I got that side all together, painted and everything installed. So I'm gonna try to do a better job of doing everything on this side on camera. So here we go. All right, so the first thing we'll do is get the bolts out and pull the axle out. Then on the Dana 70s, there's a little lock piece in there. I should say Dana 70 HD. That's what this axle is. It's out of an old Ford just a little piece of steel that goes into the nut. This nut is a big nylock nut, and it goes into the channel of the axle. So you put the nylock nut on where the wheel bearings are set, and then you put this into the channel, and it keeps the nut another level of keeping the nut in place. Then what they use is a 2 9/16 6-point socket. Goes in there. You'll be able to take that spindle nut off. And then once you get the nut off, you can wiggle the hub around, pull it off, and your outer bearing will come out. And you can take your hub off. At which point you can inspect your seal surface, your inner bearing surface, and your outer bearing surface. Make sure there's nothing that's, you can feel, you might be able to feel a lip in the bottom of it. That would tell you your inner bearing race has spun on the spindle and wore that down. And it can make your wheel bearing loose, and that'll make your wheel seal leak. Make sure there's nothing bad on the wheel seal area. And then, so this brake assembly, you could just put the new pieces on it, but the other side, I'm pretty sure I filmed that. The other side was in kind of rough shape, so I replaced it with an axle, a Sterling axle backing plate, which is, as far as I can tell, the same. These Dana 70s use the same brakes as them and everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pull this backing plate off as an assembly and set it to the side. So this axle was a Facebook Marketplace find. It was like $100. It did not come with the truss. So when I got it, the guy said it might be locked up, but the housing looks straight. I took a chance on it because I had a good feeling about it. And what I did was hammer on the drum, that section that contacts the shoes, and break it off, and then the axle spun just fine. So what it was the brakes that are falling apart and rusting and everything were seized on the drum, making it so the wheels wouldn't turn. But we're going to put all new brakes on it and everything. So what I'm going to do is get this axle cleaned up and put some paint on it so it can start drying while I move to the next thing. While that paint dries, we'll switch our attention to stuff we can do on the bench over here. We'll start with the hub. To replace the drum, you have to drive the studs out of the hub here. And this is the left hub. Back when this was built, the left side of the vehicle had left-handed threads on the studs. So all these, my guess is somebody tried to take this set of wheels off and tried to turn this left to loosen them, but all it did was tighten it and break it off. These studs aren't going back in, and these lug nuts aren't any more use to me. But we got to keep our axle bolts. Now this old hub is, or this whole drum is junk. We're doing everything in these hubs, races and all. So we'll drive these races out. I guess I'll go get that old drum and set it on. There's the inner race and the seal. Or bearing. Now we can get rid of that drum. Outer race, nut, and lock, junk. Those are supposedly one-time use products. I don't know why you would want to try to reuse it unless you were in a real bind. But I'll show you what I'm going to do different. Set that off to the side for now. This is an axle, this is the chunk of axle off of a Sterling that I was going to make had big greens as a young man to make a trailer axle out of that matched. Used these hubs to match what I had on the truck so I could have spare parts, and it would cover the trailer I would have and the truck for an overlanding trailer. Never ended up building it, and now I'm going to scrap it out for parts that are in it. This is a single rear wheel setup, but that's not the parts we're after. The Dana 70s seal around the bolt holes. the Sterling axles use a O-ring at the end of the axle. They also use a different nut. Now this nut is a multi-use nut. You use it as many times as you want. And that nut fits inside the Dana 70 axle and on the spindle of the Dana 70, same thread, same size. So I'm going to put this Sterling wheel nut onto this Dana axle. That way I don't have to worry about the nylock or the push-in lock getting damaged for any reason. It's all clicks in and torques just great. It does take a special socket. I've got a couple of these. Way small. That's what it is. That one there. So there's the one for the Dana 70 and this is the one for the Sterling. Napa part number 3246. Well, that might be a problem. This one appears to be a left-hand thread tight nut. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to order the right side nut for these. Because that's how I put that side together. And like I said, I was filming that side and I don't remember how far I got. So just explaining as much as I can for what I'm doing. Won't need this bearing. Won't need this drum. So a Sterling axle has a bigger inner bearing, bigger seal surface. It's a little bit beefier on the outside. But it's smaller in the differential itself. So to say one is tougher than the other, I would have a hard time saying which one. I would imagine it does come down a lot to how they get used. seal. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pull this backing plate off. These bolts look like they're in better shape, so we're going to use these on that axle. And we're done with this, so into the scrap. We also don't need any of this anymore. I'll keep that because I do have a couple other Sterling axles floating around. So just in case I need a cap for a hub or something, it serves a purpose. And you can look at this and see it's all laid out the same. So we can tear this down and we don't have to take any pictures or anything because I've already got a built diagram here. If you didn't have one, I would recommend taking a picture of it for any detail you might need. So this top pivot, it's super stiff right now, but it's got a nut on the back side, and then the wheel cylinder has 2 bolts on the back side. So we'll pull them out and be able to pop that out of there. Got the nut off the back side and just wiggled it out of the backing plate. I'm going to leave that assembled for now, but eventually we'll have to pull that all apart. Now we got more cleaning and more painting to do. So I got this wiped down. The reason we're using it is because it's in a lot better shape than the one that came off of it. So we'll get this bolted on the axle and I'll be able to start pulling this stuff apart and cleaning it up to put it all back together. And of course, a lot of new parts too. You want to make sure this clip goes back on. That's the parking brake comes through there and clips onto this. Now we'll paint it again. It'll be coat number 2 for the axle parts, and coat number 1 on this backing plate. Now we can let that dry and start cleaning up some more stuff. Let's actually look at some of the new parts I've got. All right, so here's the new parts. We got a drum, we got a wheel cylinder, we got some shoes, bearings, new studs, parking brake cable, hardware kits for the shoes and the adjuster. So these studs have a shoulder on them that go through the drum, and they're supposed to be just shy of the hub. Well, the last one I did, the shoulder must be maybe 1/1000th or so too long. So what happens is it gets the drum tight where it won't wobble, but it has enough free play in it where it will shift. So it would just sit there and bang on the back of the studs and break them off, and then your drum would come loose. You wouldn't have any brakes on whatever wheel and failed first. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a big drill bit and just start drilling in every hole, and it just takes and chamfers in every hole. That way we can set this drill or this drum on and run these studs through and drive them as far as we can, and then with it driven all the way in, that drum gets tight and it doesn't wobble. And that's how we're going to take care of that problem. So something happened and it quit recording. I drilled these a little bit and I painted them, and I tried putting the drum on before I checked, and I need to go a little further. So here we go. So let's show you what I was doing. You can see that little bit of a burr, or that little bit of a taper in there on each hole. And the point of that is so that makes it so that shoulder on the stud doesn't hit where and stop it early. So this table's top is bolted onto the frame, and if you do a bunch of hits, it actually makes the bolts fall out. So I'm gonna switch this to the floor. Clean up everything here. And move your camera, move the camera here so you can watch what I'm doing. There's the hub down on the ground. I'm going to drop the studs into the holes. That still does not lock that into place. Are you kidding me? That still has a little bit of movement. You can watch right there. So I'm gonna have to go around and beat these again and see if I can get it out, or I have to drive those studs back out and do it again. So now I can't move it, but when I rock it, I can hear that it still sounds like it's a little loose. But it is getting better as I'm going around and beating on these studs. So I guess it's just, at this point, it's as good as it's gonna get. As far as clearances and everything, I just have to keep pressing on those studs. This is the only thing I've got that really does the job good.
I'll just keep working on this and bring it back when I get it finished. All right, so got them all pounded together. That's the sound I was looking for. There's no movement in it. Sounds good. So on to the next step. Thanks for watching. Bye.